Hey there, and welcome to season 3 of Pause and Rewind. I'm Neil, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host and producer of my podcast, which is very much created for everyone. As usual, I'll be chatting to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And, let's face it, we need it. We'll be diving into the moments, the realisations and relationships in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now. Because everyone loves an origin story. We'll be talking tales, anecdotes, and a little of what makes our guests tick. This is an 8-episode season going out during Pride season. And Pride really is a celebration of the LGBTQ+ community, but it's first and foremost a protest. Showing up has never been more important, and what we're seeing right now is the fight is definitely not over. Each of these guests has an amazing story when it comes to doing their own thing and how they're showing up in the world. And I'm so excited to shine a spotlight on their stories. So, with that in mind, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hello, and welcome to another episode of Pause and Rewind, my second episode for season 3, and it's Pride season. Happy Pride. I hope that your Pride Month has got underway. Obviously, Pride Month is not really a thing anymore. It is Pride season. It goes on forever. So I hope that you are managing to get some rest and take care of yourselves and have some fun too. Fun is super important right now. My guest this week is Asad Dhunna. Asad is the founder of the Unmistakables, which is a consultancy specialising in DEI through a number of different avenues. And what really stands out about the Unmistakables is how innovative, rigorous, and science-based it is. And it's a little bit cheeky as well. And I really love that about their work. Their work really, really stands out. It's fresh. It's really impactful, and it just has such a vibe to it, and that is because of Asad and the incredible team that he has behind him. And what I love about Asad is he never stops bigging up his team. He really is a brilliant leader. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of the Unmistakable, big fan of Asad. So I was really excited to sit and chat with him. And we have some brilliant moments in this conversation. We go deep on some things, and there's some real fun in here as well. We have a shared love of the former iconic venue, which was Ghetto, which was on Tottenham Court Road. For those that remember it, what a venue! I'm just, I'd love to go back for a night out in there. But yeah, there's something for everyone in here. So here's the episode. Enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Cheers. Hey Asad, it is so good to see you. Welcome to Pause and Rewind.
Oh, hi, nice. Thanks for having me, Neil.
Absolute pleasure. I always start with a big question, and that is, what does the world look like for Asad Dhunna right now?
Oh, the world is a little bit in chaos, but kind of controllable chaos is what I'd call it. Yeah, I've got a lot of things going on in all the lanes of my life, but yeah, manageable.
Manageable.
Yeah.
And how are things with the unmistakable? Because actually, within that chaos, when you've got an organization like with that name, the Unmistakable, it does give you that sense of hope and power.
Oh, that's funny you say hope. We've just done a paper called The Hope Gap, which is all about the fact that we know we need to be hopeful for things, but things aren't changing the way we want them to. So I'm glad the name does that because it's something that we believe in. How are things going with the Unmistakables? It's an interesting time at the moment with everything that's happening around the world of diversity, inclusion, what's coming out of the US with Trump. And every day you're seeing something new and something different about how organizations are responding, how leaders are responding, what this actually means for the future of businesses. But we've been spending the last couple of months doing some exciting stuff, which I can't talk about just yet, but I'm really excited about what's to come.
So, I mean, for me, following your work with the Unmistakable and you, it's no surprise that you've got exciting stuff coming up, but it's also no surprise that you've hit the nail on the head with your new report around hope, because you are this beacon of innovation within DEI, right? Like when you think about some of the things that you've worked on, spanning across everything from creative industries, advertising, marketing, insights, inclusive policies and communications, all of those things, and particularly with your inside out inclusion lens. it's no surprise that you are kind of like leading the way when it comes to DEI innovation
Oh, well, thanks
and
for saying.
hitting the nail on the head with what people need.
Yeah, and thanks for saying that, Neil. And that's what we try to do. We try to meet people where they are and understand how you can change behavior and shift behavior.
Mm,
So the model is all about shifting behaviors and what it is inside organizations that needs to move. So Selena on my team is brilliant, and she talks about psychological safety and the need for that, but also how that then differs for different communities and different groups, and how you then adapt your policies, how you adapt the way the organization operates, then through to the brand and the marketing side, because that's often the front end of diversity and inclusion. That's where you see the things like Bud Light, that's where you see the things like Target, and where marketers are getting it wrong. So I've always been of the firm belief that if we're going to do this, we've got to do it properly and we've got to do it well. So it's really heartening to hear you say that, Neil. It's not been easy, and we keep running up against challenges, but we keep going.
That's it. I mean, I sit across the DI from an events perspective. We're working through We Create Space, and it is so challenging right now. But I think that there is hope, right? There's a lot of people that are still so committed, and we've got this whole rhetoric of everyone's abandoning DEI and DEI is dead. But actually, the work you're doing, the work I'm doing with We Create Space, is really not the case.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to what is the work of DEI.
Mm,
Because when I started the business in 2018, it was about helping businesses understand different groups, different communities, and applying that into how they operate. The principle of that hasn't changed. So just because Trump says DEI is dead, it's not going to stop people from being gay, from being
yeah,
mixed race, from becoming disabled in their life, from experiencing different things. So we can't live in this reality that is being painted for us by an American politician, particularly here in Britain. I think people have a different sensibility in this country, and even more so in Europe. So when you see the way that France responded to some of the US mandates about DE&I, this no, that's not for us. We're different. Even though France has its own challenges around diversity
of course.
inclusion, I think people don't like to be told what to do by the Americans, and I think that's going to carry on for a little bit now because everyone's quite exhausted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is exhausting. I think that what it has shone light on though is that some of the approaches need to change. And I think one of the things that you lean on most and build into your work and embed is the importance of metrics
Yeah.
and auditing.
Yeah, and that's what the model's about. So we look at sets of indicators and measures of what you're trying to shift, because our clients are always saying to us, what is the impact that you've had? So the impact can be, well, we've shifted capability levels, we've improved
Yeah.
cultural confidence, we've improved psychological safety amongst different groups, we've changed the hiring funnel and progression opportunities for people. And those aren't things that you can do straight away on day one. They're things that take time. They're things that take partnership, and they're things that take a lot of tenacity for our clients to want to make change.
Yeah. And it's not quick change. It's not a quick fix. It's none of what we're doing in this space is you're not going to get a quick win.
I think that's it. And you said the word fix, Neil, and sometimes that's what makes the work a bit challenging, because
Mm,
if you're in a large organization that has ingrained systems processes that could be tens or hundreds of years old, then there is a need to reassess them and say, is that fit for purpose? So there is a need always to say, right, it's a bit like with clothes, you go, does that work? Does that not work? Maybe fashion comes back around, try something different, see if it fits. Our styles change, like the world moves on. And so you can't all hang on to that. And then what I notice in some of our smaller clients or the newer businesses that we work with, they want to build for the future. They're saying, actually, how do we integrate this at the early stages? And I've experienced that because we're building a business as well. So when we're bringing in partners or when we're bringing in people that we work with, we're often having to upskill them on what our expectations are around diversity, what we desire to see around inclusion. So this stuff is always moving, but I would just encourage us to go, is it always something to fix, or is it actually just the way the world is going in the future?
yeah. So yeah, super, super interesting way of looking at it and important as well because we need to pivot and flex and be realistic sometimes about what is going on. And sometimes you can't control it. You have to sit and wait. You've mentioned hope. What gives you hope during these challenging times as someone working in this space, but also just in the way that you show up in the world as a queer person right now?
What gives me hope? What gives me hope is the immense amount of talent that exists in the world. So I love going on TikTok and seeing the incredible creativity that you see from people who are untethered from the creative system or the creative industry, but they're making content that makes you laugh, makes you smile, gives you an insight into a world that you didn't know. That gives me a lot of hope. I think it also gives me a bit of an energy drain because you can end up in a doom scroll. But
For
then when
sure.
I deep it and think, actually, that's amazing talent. And often that is talent that doesn't enter the mainstream or doesn't enter through the system, but is then getting its props from others. That I love that, and I think I love talking about that and saving videos and sending them around to people, going, "This is what we were talking about." So to give you an example, there was the new Ed Sheeran song called Azizam is out, and that's a Persian word. And so I was thinking about that, and in the Unmistakable,s we talk about cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. So that difference between stealing from a culture or harnessing it and really appreciating the roots of it. And we talk about it so much. My colleague Shilpa's made a model for it. She guides clients through it. And then on TikTok, I was watching this amazing creator just break down like, this is why I think this is cultural appreciation. This is who he worked with. This is how it shows my culture, Persian culture in the mainstream. And then he or his team had commented on that. And I just thought, how amazing that you've got that sort of connection. So that gives me a lot of hope. You asked me what gives me hope as a queer person. The times are strange at the moment with what's happening
Mm,
with the Supreme Court ruling. And I think what gives me hope as a queer person is actually just looking back through history and going, time has been harder for queer people, like since day dot. Times are slightly easier now than they have been before, but by God, they were difficult before. And so let's just keep the hope that we're going to get through this by rallying around as a community. Um, and I went to this brilliant event with the Bitten Peach. They have their Peach Offspring, which is like the South Asian gang. And Shiva Raichandani, who's brilliant, just did this sort of monologue about self-care and how self-care borrows on yoga, borrows on Indian principles, but actually it becomes so individualistic. Whereas mutual care is better, the care for the other, the care for the together. And I think the queer community is quite good at that. There's often just like a baseline understanding of like, we've got each other's back. But there is a whole load of toxicity that exists in the community. I'm not going to deny that. But
yeah.
I think people just have got each other's back sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of toxicity that exists in this idea of self-care and what it looks like now, right? The well-being space. And we had an amazing session with Voda the other day, actually, talking about community building 101. And it was
Mm.
focused on self-care and communal care and how they are
Mm.
so interlinked. So with that,
Mm.
what does self-care look like for you?
Well, I'm not very good at it, is the
I
reality.
think that's the common thread across this podcast, right? I think with people that are striving to make the world a more inclusive place, like you, like so many people that appear I chat to and that are out there, that is a common thread that we're actually not very good at self-care, but
No.
really good at encouraging others to
Yeah.
to look into it.
Yeah, it's there's a really good advisor that I work with called Sarah Denbitz, and she runs a wellbeing company. And I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning her, but we had a chat and she talks about what does it take for you to be at your best. And what I realized was it's actually having the time to do
Mm.
the things that are important. And we can be so, I know I can be so like, I've got to be at my computer doing whatever, but just taking an hour, 2 hours to do something that isn't work is like the unconscious thinking time. So self-care for me is actually getting on my bike and cycling around Richmond Park and doing a lap. That's like an hour and a half, 2 hours, just my brain switches off, but still
Yeah.
processes. And I love it. And it's something that I've done for like 15 or so years. So it also anchors me back in like who I was back then and who I am now. And I find that really important.
Yeah. Mine is a run, so similar.
Okay.
Just like kind of like just get out there, pound the pavement, and
Yeah.
then I can use it for whatever I need to use it for.
Yeah.
Escapism, processing, switching off, it's all good.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. But I was meant to run the marathon this Sunday, but it didn't quite happen. So maybe next year.
maybe next year. Okay, I'm thinking of doing it next year. I want to do one more marathon before I give up on long runs. Um, Before we dive into your origin story, I want to focus on the fact that you are always uplifting other people. You've done it in this short space of time, and I've seen you do it before with colleagues from the Unmistakables and outside. And I just wanted to say that about you because you're always really quick to shine a spotlight on other people's talent and what they bring to the table.
Oh, thanks, Neil. Yeah, I think I remember very early in my career, I read something or someone just said like you're the sum of the parts. And so if people are doing well, just give them their props. And I think the event that we did a while ago where my colleague Rosie was there, like she's
Yes.
fabulous, like just a brilliant person. She's now heading up D&I at Greenpeace. Like the privilege that I had of working with someone so passionate and dedicated, and I always think that, and I've got such amazing colleagues around me that I just feel very lucky.
Yeah. What's the day like with the Unmistakables?
Oh, at the minute, there's a lot of planning in that's going into some good stuff. So there's that. There's thinking about our clients and where they're at, what they need in the immediate term, what they might need around the corner. Yesterday we just had like a team afternoon where we went out for a meal and did some thinking. We were talking about how you build a high performing culture and what that looks like. So yeah, real mix. And then the other bit I think that's probably unique to me is just for myself looking around the corner and saying what's happening, what are our clients thinking, what's the market seeing, and trying to put that into practice.
Love it. Well, thank you. You know, I love the work you do. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. For now, are you ready to pause and rewind?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Take me back. Tell me all about little Asad.
So little me grew up in northwest London, to two parents, got three siblings. I'm reading a lot about birth order at the moment. So my birth order is quite interesting because I'm the youngest by 9 years. So I've got three siblings who are kind of within a bracket, and then there's me. So whether I'm the happy accident or a little mistake, you can do it as you wish. But yeah, so grew up in Northwest London. My childhood was like it was a strange one because my parents were quite strict for my siblings, but I think by the time they got to me, they were a bit knackered and probably just let me get on with it. And what I've recently learned is that when your age gap is more than 6 years, you break your birth order. So I'm more of an only child and a youngest child rather than just the youngest. So I've been processing some of that and going, well, that makes sense. But yeah, so that was me. Got to the merry old age of 18. I love cars, so like was big into like learning how to drive. Got no minors on my driving test, so I like to talk about that clean sheet. So I was out and about, and then my dad passed away when I was 18, which had a really profound impact on me and my outlook on life and what's important. And then I remember someone saying to me, "Well, you're not going to go to university now because you need to be at home." And I went, "Nah, my dad really valued education. That was
Mm.
the big thing. So I'm going to go to uni." So yeah, then I went off to uni and then life unfolded from there. But yeah, I've just paused there because that's 18 years or so in a group.
Yeah, let's take it dial it back a little bit. What were you like at school?
I was mischievous. So I would um cause a bit of mayhem a little bit, like probably within the confines of being in a strict Asian household. So it was never like absolutely wild, but I would always be a bit cheeky,
Yeah.
or I'd always like spot the edges, or I remember like my art class. The art teacher I had, I would always just like quip back and speak back, and people don't like that. And I
Mm.
remember that quite specifically. I remember my siblings telling me that I'd always be hanging out of my high chair. And then when I got an ADHD diagnosis, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense because the hyperactivity. But I was studious. Like when I went home, it was like, we came to this country for you to learn. We came here for you to get an education. So get the education that you're here to get. Um, So yeah, I think that's what I was like at school. And then at secondary school, I found really good friends. I got really lucky with my set of friends at secondary school, the Watford boys, and met my best friends and was really, really lucky at that point.
Yeah. With that early ADHD diagnosis, what because that we're talking different time here. Awareness has come on
Yeah.
leaps and bounds, and particularly with neurodivergence in adults. But what was it like early on?
Yeah. Well, I didn't have the diagnosis then. So I got the diagnosis 2 years
Right.
ago,
Okay. Fair.
and it helped me unlock what was happening before. So what came up for me was the 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 discipline of the Asian household gave me the
Right.
masking that I needed
I see.
because it was, well, this is what you need to do. So even in that, like, we came here for you to get an education meant, right, I need to focus on this thing and make sure I'm good at it because someone is telling me, even though I might be pushing back on authority, I still know that it's important. And in Asian culture, respect for the elder is really important. So
Mm,
I carried some of that. And I think when I look back at the time, I wouldn't but back then we didn't use words like intersectionality, for example.
of
But I
course.
was an intersectional kid. Like I was carrying lots of different identities. And I think I look back and go, oh, well, I just wasn't conscious, like to the degree I am now, but no one is as a kid, I think.
No, no, and thankfully so. Do you know what I mean? Because we
Yeah.
shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to, and unfortunately, some of us do.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
yeah.
we shouldn't have to. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Growing up in an Asian household, a lot of emphasis and prioritization of education. What was the goal? Because what you're doing now probably was definitely not around
No,
back
not
then,
being a doctor, a lawyer, or a dentist. So
was that very much it?
those were the options. It was like doctor, lawyer, dentist, banker. Like those were the things. And that's
Yeah.
because they are known professions. That's also because, particularly I grew up in an Indian household, like earning potential is important. And
Mm,
so people go into banking, therefore the strata of people you're around is that set, and therefore the community you're in is that set. So it was just like you don't know what you don't know. So that's what you're meant to do. And then I studied German for A level. I studied German, French, and business. And the business was always the like fallback. So do that, but do the business bit because that's important. And then when I went to uni, it was German and business studies. And so it's like do the thing that you find interesting, but do something that's going to get you a job. It was that
yeah.
was drilled in. And I think by the time it got to me, my parents were just too knackered to argue. And like my dad passed away, so I got a bit more free rein to do what I wanted to do. But to get to where I've got to now has been a bit of a potted history, but there's always been a bit of a theme through it.
What is the thing?
I think the theme has always been combining who I am and how I want to operate and lead
Mm,
with creating some kind of change or
yeah.
creating some kind of difference. So I wanted to work in marketing when I came out of university. That was one of my modules in my business degree, and I went, I really find that interesting. And I found economics interesting, but I don't have the maths level that you need to be an economist. So it's like, well, business is an adjunct to that, so I'll explore that. I loved the marketing module, and then I found it really challenging to get a job in marketing because it was 2010. A lot of that industry is start out at a low salary or no salary. And then I almost got onto the Bentley graduate scheme, and that would have been a job in Crewe. And I just remember thinking, I can't live in Crewe. I just can't. Like, I
Fair.
think being Asian really felt a thing for me. And then I also thought, God, I'll never come out if I live there and do that. That's not going to happen.
Mm,
And then I found a marketing agency in London that I worked at for my first couple of years, and that was great, set up my foundations. But it was always just following that, like, do something you're interested in.
yeah.
Hopefully, it'll make you money. Um, but if you're really in a good space on the first thing, the second thing follows.
Yeah. Um, I want to continue that thread shortly, but I want to come back to establishing your queerness.
Sure.
Yeah, and that story. What
Yeah.
was that like for you?
Uh,
When, around what time? were your first maybe realizations? Obviously, teenage years can be quite challenging. It sounds like you had a good friendship set at school,
Yeah,
which is
and
great.
the funny thing is, like, so like two of my absolute best friends are queer. One I met in primary school, and one I met in secondary school.
That's amazing.
And so my like queerness journey, I guess I knew very young, as most people did. I think when I was
Mm.
in primary school, I was like, why am I more interested in that person than that person? But then, strict South Asian family, like you got to pray it away. So you pray the gay away. And then I remember when I was when I was 17, I can't remember what age I was, but it was I could drive, right? And my friends could because I was the eldest in the year. So there was a New Year's Eve where we said, let's go out in London and I'll drive us all into town and we'll go out. And my two aforementioned friends were like, let's go to a gay club. And the gay club was called Ghetto.
Oh
And
my God, one of my favorites.
all-time faves. So
Yes,
you go
yep.
pop stars, you get your Q jump, you go Ghetto. Like
I love.
that was what happened. And so I remember like we did that it was New Year's Eve of all days. And then we went into Ghetto and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna go to hell, like what we're doing, but also like, oh, this is really fun. Like this is really, really fun. So I guess that was like my first encounter, if you like, of like
Mm.
gay nightlife and gay life. But it all just felt like really alien
Yeah,
because it didn't feel like it was for me. And like now that I've got an office around the corner in Soho, I'm like, I'm just if little me then knew now, like how would you think life is? So that was that. But then uni, like I locked myself in the closet, like threw away the key, double locked it, like and focused on studying. Which again was the like ADHD, just hyper focus, don't
right.
put that in. Um, and then when I was in my mid 20s, um, came out. And I remember the marketing agency that I mentioned, the person who interviewed me at the time is a gay man. I'm still very good friends with him. And in the interview, he said to me, Neil, have you got any questions for me? And I said, oh, I really like your shoes. Where did you get them from? And he was like, I knew at that moment, but you probably didn't, you weren't ready to get there. So yeah, the mid 20s like came out and I had a pretty like challenging time at the company I was at the time because someone said, oh, we all know you're gay. And I didn't want to come out and wasn't there. And then it all sort of accelerated for me because I then was in a relationship that didn't work out. Thought I need a set of friends, like I really need some gay
Mm.
friends. So I joined Pride in London as a volunteer and made loads of friends and then met my now husband. And so that's the way the world's moved on.
That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
what a journey.
Yeah.
But it's not like you said, it's not without its struggles. And although many of our coming out journeys, not that you ever stop, but though many of them have common threads, each are unique to you and what you
Mm.
go through. I'd love to ask, if you don't mind answering, how did you move on with your family against maybe cultural expectations and religious backdrop
Yeah.
with the queerness and coming into your own?
Yeah, that I mean that honest answer, lots of therapy.
Okay.
That's the space that I needed to process.
Yeah.
And then it was honest conversations to say this is
Yeah.
who I am and this is what that means. And it took time to do that. I also found Muslim LGBT people through
Yeah.
Iman and just realized that I wasn't by myself with it. And
Yeah.
I think in my 20s, I was a lot more activisty. So I created this thing called the Big Gay Iftar, and it got loads of media coverage and was a space for queer Muslims and allies, and put my head above the parapet. I think probably in part for me to deal with it as well, to go, I'm not alone. Um, but that just took time. And my family didn't love it. Even I had a younger person in the family say to me, "Gosh, are you like, is that really necessary?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is." So did it. So I kind of took that sort of like attitude to it, but I'm more tempered now.
Yeah. I think we learn to harness that a little bit
Mm.
more. Yeah. Again, a common thread. Is there a moment in perhaps your career that felt like a bit of a failure when looking back now, you can see it was probably the making of the Assad we know now?
I'd say there've been like jobs that I didn't get that I thought I really wanted. And there have also been perhaps times where I've left and gone, maybe I should have hung on for a bit and kept going. So I left my second job after 3 years, and it was around the time I came out. And I think I was like, sound like Madonna. It's like, I just need a reinvention, I need to change who I am. And I look back and go, actually, if I'd stuck that out for a bit longer, what could that have looked like? And if I had
Mm.
voiced how I actually felt and felt like I could, then maybe I would have been supported in a different way. So I look back on those moments, and go, gosh, maybe I should have done it differently. But I also try and operate, Neil, from a like no regrets perspective. So if it's a failure, it's like, well, okay, I made the best decision I could at that time with the resources I had available to me then. Fine.
Yeah. And I imagine that from looking back retrospectively, probably, and again, maybe without even realizing it, that has shaped the leader that you are now in
Yeah,
creating that space for other people.
yeah, I think that's the thing. Like I I feel a responsibility to repair what was and what is. So often I have people coming to the Unmistakable saying, I've never worked somewhere like this before where I can be X, I can be Y. And that has also presented a shadow side because for many people, work is a thing and it has
Mm,
to fulfill and fit into the box of work. And managing the two aren't easy. And it's about creating clarity and clear lanes. So we are constantly doing that. But I do think it's important, and I think I wouldn't be genuine in who I am if that didn't exist in our business.
yeah,
Um, and it hasn't been easy, and I don't always get it right. And there's probably dozens of failures in that path that I could have done something different. I could have acted on something earlier, had a harder conversation quicker. Um, but I can only do the best I can.
yeah, absolutely. And that knowing that and knowing yourself and knowing that you have
Mm.
is it gives you peace, right? How do you total side question, how do you feel about this discourse around the word work, family in a work environment, right? Because in DEI it's sometimes bandied around quite a lot. You know, I know within We Create Space we are very community focused, and sometimes that's used interchangeably with family. With the House of Happiness, we say House of Happiness fam. How do you feel about that? And what's the feeling around that in would you think it would be in the Unmistakable?
It really depends. Like one of our values is individuality. So we
Mm,
value people's individual perspectives. So if I look at my individual perspective of family, coming back to what I said about birth order, I haven't
yeah,
had what might be deemed a traditional setup of family. And through losing my parents, my family shape is different. And I
yeah,
think being in a queer family, that is also different. So family just means different things.
yeah.
I think in a workplace context, it can lead to a bit of unhealthiness because the boundaries get blurred.
Mm,
And at its best, it means people are operating really well, they're high performing, they're working in a way that feels like a family operates and sticks together.
yeah,
At its worst, it can have a load of dysfunction. And I had a colleague who said to me, we bring all of our home life into work. We bring all of who we are in like our dynamics, our systems, our birth structures, all of that follows you. And I think my thing to say, if you want family to work, you need all the individual agents to be really aware of who they are. So if you're a youngest child, for example, you might demonstrate behaviors that are related to how you were in your family dynamic. If you're then unconsciously bringing them into work, is that a good thing or bad thing? So I think I'm not averse to it. I just think you need loads of awareness around it.
yeah. Yeah, no, great points. And I don't think there's a right answer. It is it's so relative to who you are and how you show up and what you're comfortable with as well. There's definitely a comfort and boundaries issue around that. Speaking of, I'd love to know how much of yourself do you sometimes either throw in or hold back when it comes to your professional output
Mm.
and your identity? Because you said that your career tilted along the lines of doing something that you're interested in, wanting to make a change, bringing who you are into it. And we can see from listening to you, we've got little Asad who liked to push boundaries and be a bit cheeky. So I guess how much of that do we see now in you and how you show up? And then what are some of your things that you maybe hold back or you're all guns blazing?
Yeah, good. That's a really good question because I think some of that cheekiness comes through in what we put out in the world of the
It
Unmistakable.
definitely does. I mean, it's a loaded question, right? Because I can
Yeah,
because from listening, I can see it, I can
yeah.
feel it. Yeah,
It comes out in that little like, diversity and confusion or Bay Mate the
yeah.
same. It's like word plays that then go, oh, that's funny. Um, the bits I hold back. So I when I was in my mid-20s, at some point I went onto a Stonewall leadership course, and it talked about being an LGBT leader. And there was a line that stuck with me, which was there is a difference between secrecy and privacy.
Mm,
I loved it because often and I think for me, because I was in the closet for a while in my working career, there was something I was keeping private, but also secret. And in a business context, secrecy can often undermine trust. Because if you don't feel like everything's out in the open and something's being hidden from you, like a restructuring or
yeah,
XYZ, you're like, oh, am I really safe here? Am I psychologically sound? Is my system okay? Um, So I think there is a real difference. And I use that construct in my head to go, what am I keeping something a secret or am I keeping something private? And often there's things I will keep private because they don't need to be broadcast. And I've gotten
yeah,
better at that. And there are things where I go, well, why is that feeling like a secret or why is that feeling confidential, let's say? And sometimes things have to be confidential because of the way you run a business and the way
yeah,
that's mandated. Um, so are there things that I keep private? Yeah, there are. And that probably the innermost thoughts that I don't broadcast into the world. Um, and I think they're important as well. I think sometimes I'm probably rattling on, but I remember reading something about how queer people can often overcompensate for holding things private by playing a
mm,
role. So playing the jester or playing the jokey camp man. And that then becomes a caricature of who you are. And what I learned was as I got more senior, yes, comedy and comic effect can be a way to lighten a room and can help people through, but it can also undermine your seriousness. And
yes,
if you're leading something or going through something really challenging and you're coming across a bit jokey, you're not then meeting the mood of what you're trying to get across.
yeah. Really, really resonates with me. And I tell you, uh, sobriety for me.
Mm,
Like
mm,
literally like coming through the other side and having to learn to navigate my life, my world, my outlook, the way people responded to me as this new person that was totally different. And I can
yeah.
really look, it's really sharp you saying that because I look back now and I can see how I undermine myself so much with being this caricature of myself.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm interested about the sobriety point because I've noticed, for example, like there might be a work setting where you go, oh, it might just be a bit easier with a drink
Mm,
because it chills all the mood out. But fewer and fewer people are drinking, like half my
yeah,
workforce doesn't. And so then as a leader, it's like it was on you to figure out how to be you
yeah.
without the crutch.
Yeah. Yeah, no. What you said totally made sense. Really kind of spark something in me. Really interesting. I would love to know about the moment that you found your voice or destination, whatever you want to call it in inclusion.
I feel like I'm still finding it, to be
Right.
honest. I think the when I started the company, DEI was more diversity and inclusion, was a bit more equal opportunities in
Yeah.
2018. So I guess the industry of DEI didn't exist as it does today. And at that time, I was all about marketing and comms. Like, how do you do this through a marketing and comms lens? And by this, I mean just be more relevant. And what I learned through doing that was you also have to do the inside stuff of the people and how that feels. So I think something like the inside out inclusion model that you mentioned, that that has helped me to get my voice because it's grounded in science, it's grounded
Yeah.
in rigor, which I have Selena to thank for in the way that she has wanted to develop that with the team. that really helps me because it's like, this is what it leads to. And when I talk to people, a lot of them say, well, in the space of DEI, you've got lots of people who are trading off of lived experience, and that is a factor. But for me, it's about lived expertise. So it's about the
Yes.
fact that you've been a leader in a business. It's about the fact that you have done this initiative. It's the fact that you've been this high potential candidate somewhere and not got it. Those are the sorts of things that I think are just as important. Because then when we sit with our clients, they're like, you get it. You've been there. You understand what
Yeah.
we're going through. You can help us change it.
Yeah. You're able to back it up.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably it. It's for me, it's I found my voice by being able to back it up.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's probably an over reliance on the lived experience side of things versus the real evidence base. I've heard you talk about it. Lily Zen talks about it quite a lot.
Mm. Yeah, for us, it was like unconscious bias training, for example. We've never done it. We do bias training, which is
Mm,
applied bias of how it might impact your certain job. But just knowing the concept of unconscious bias, we've often seen it just do more harm than good, Neil.
yeah. So interesting. Yeah, and so just so important to recognize the fact that it's just not as clear cut as just listening to someone's lived experience. It needs to go deeper. Um, Talk to me about someone who shaped you the most along the way.
Oh, um, the immediate person to go to is my first boss, whose shoes I asked about.
Where were the shoes from?
The shoes are from Paul Smith, so
Okay.
he was doing they're great shoes. He's called Richard, just brilliant. Like because the kind of person who helps you to see through fog
Mm,
and can just go, I listen, I hear it. It's that, do that, and it's a really unique skill. And the other skill that he has is you always feel great after speaking to him. You walk out and you go, oh, like I just should have done that sooner. Um, So Richard, then I had another Richard. My second boss was called Richard. There's lots of Richards, and he said to me, "As you move through your career, become the best bits of all the people that you meet and work with,"
yeah.
which I loved because you just become like a sponge. And then with ADHD, it's like absorbing information, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you just quickly go bit of that, bit of that, bit of that. So those two Richards have really shaped me, and then there's been a lot of women that have shaped me. There was a period of my career where I pretty much exclusively worked for women, and I loved the female leadership style. I just
Same.
thrived when I worked with women, and one was called Helen Bennett, who now runs Weber Shamwick, and she just always backed my corner and all the way through, like all the way through, and I'll never ever forget that.
Yeah. 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 My career and my life is shaped by the women around me, to be fair. And we're recording this during Lesbian Visibility Week, and as a community, you know, just all praise to the
Yeah.
women around us.
Yeah, as you said that, so Ali Camps, who was the co-chair at Pride in London as well, learn. I always learn a lot from Ali, and
Yeah.
just yeah, brilliant, brilliant people. So yeah, as it's Lesbian Visibility Week, shout out
Yeah.
to Ali Camps.
Shout out to all those amazing people. Little quick one for you. Does happiness and success look and feel how you thought it would?
No, no, no. So happiness is expectations minus reality, and
Fair.
so I've had to readapt my expectations about what good looks like. Um, and success, I'm still working on that, Neil.
Mm,
I'm still working on what does success feel like. I think I don't really mind what it looks like anymore. I'm a bit over
yeah.
that. Because I also think being queer, like you don't have the same success markers, and that's something that me and my husband talk about a fair amount. Um, but I'm just trying to work out what that feels like. And part of
Mm,
me is now making real peace with. I get for 7 years now, I've been able to spend my time at work the way that I want to spend it. And I get to meet great people and see their careers and meet like great clients. And that feels successful in some way.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's definitely for me more of a feeling now, and rather than having a that image that, like you said, is just not grounded in reality, and we have to have a word with our younger self for putting that on us and
Yeah.
society.
Yeah. Well, because we adopt what success
Mm,
is from what we see around us. So what I saw as success was you have a lovely big house in the suburbs and you have your children and
yeah,
that's deemed successful. But whether someone feels happy, healthy, that's that's it's more holistic now, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely the word for it. My final question for this segment is looking back so far, what are you most proud of to date?
Oh, what am I most proud of today? Um, I can't pick one thing, and that's the truth. If I had to really dig down, I feel like our involvement with Cannes Lions is something I'm really proud of because
Mm,
it's been multifaceted and it's felt like we've had an impact and they've been really up for it.
yeah.
And I've met amazing people along the way. So that I'm proud of that because that has felt like a big change.
Yeah. The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day raid, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Are you ready for some quickfire
Do
questions?
it. Let's do it now.
What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
Oh, there's a book called High Performance by Jake Humphreys. Really random. I just picked it up the other day, but that's had a big impact. But I'm actually going to give you another one called The Wild Edge of Sorrow,
The Wild Edge
which
of Sorrow.
Wild Edge of Sorrow. So my coach gave this to me, and then my best friend did the same one I went clubbing with
Okay.
at Ghetto, and it's just a beautiful book about grief and how grief lives in our systems and how it works. I'd really recommend Wild Edge of Sorrow.
Oh, beautiful. Definitely check that out. What's a saying you live by and one that you'd put straight in the bin?
Oh, saying I live by is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yes.
And one I put in the bin, probably me and my former colleague Ben used to say bye Felicia a lot, and we've stopped saying that.
That's great. I love that. What's been the best adventure of your life so far?
Oh, getting married.
Yeah,
Yeah, love
that
it.
that comes up as an answer. It's come up as an answer a few times.
Has it? Yeah, because
Yeah,
you just don't know where you do like it is an adventure. You don't know when it's going to
yeah,
start. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know how it's going to end. Like all these things. And
yeah,
it really feels like that.
yeah, yeah. And I think that so much of it is underrated, like like the moments of content and even
Yeah,
mundaneness of it.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. What are three words that you use to describe you and your origin story?
Unmistakable, different, challenging.
Challenging. Yeah, love those. And I love that you got unmistakable in there.
Yeah, anywhere I go.
Boom.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward a little bit. What exciting things do you have coming up? I know you can't talk about some of them, but
Yeah.
what can you
We're,
give
we're,
me?
we're going to put something fun out in the world in the next couple of months. I'm really excited about that. Can Lines is around the corner, so I'm excited about that. Um, we're moving, so I'm excited about that. Yeah, I've got a few things. But the thing that we're about to put out for the Unmistakable that's probably the bit where I'm like, this is
Okay,
cool.
I am staying tuned. What brings you joy?
What brings me joy? My dog. My dog is currently here, brings me a lot of joy. Driving brings me tremendous joy.
Still winter cars and
Still into cars, absolutely love cars.
okay. What's your dog's name?
My dog's name is Gudu.
Kudu. And what breed is
He's a
Kudu?
Cavapoo. He's a 4.5-year-old Cavapoo.
Oh, gorgeous,
Actually, I'll
gorgeous.
bring him up, given that he's
Yes, please.
here he is.
Oh my
Isn't
gosh.
he adorable?
Yes. Yes.
Best dog.
I have a geriatric pug who I think is
Oh,
the best dog, but I could do with him stopping pooping on the floor. But he's
right.
old. He's old now. I guess it happens to all of
How
us.
old is he?
He's nearly 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's an old man, but yeah, he's funny. Um, well, lovely to lovely. What's his name again?
Gudu.
Goody. Oh, it's so cute. So cute. Um, what takeaways do you have for anyone wanting to carve out a career in inclusion or create something inclusive?
What takeaways would I have?
Yeah, practical, something practical.
I just ask yourself why.
Mm, yeah,
So often people would do it because it could be like some unprocessed trauma about their lived experience. So
yeah,
I would just say why and really get yourself professional skills around change. That would be the other thing. A lot of the work is about change management.
yeah, yeah. My final question for you is this: do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom to help anyone out there get to wherever they're going?
Words of encouragement, wisdom, I would say it's from a book I read called Entrepreneur Revolution. So there are three things that I always come back to, which is luck, reputation, and vitality. So that vitality point is like just try and bring joy. Don't be a drainer. No,
Yes,
just don't do that. Like, and if you are feeling like you're being a drainer, you're probably doing the wrong thing. So there's that. Reputation is what reputation is, but luck. Don't forget luck. I think everyone feels like they're in control and they can do it all. And if you just slog it out hard enough, it will come to you. Sometimes it's just luck, like in the right place, right time, right people. Let go and see what comes.
I love that. Three simple words, but say so much.
Yeah, they're not mine. I borrowed them from Daniel Priestley, who wrote that book, which is the one I read before I started business.
Yeah. Asad, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'm really grateful that we got to get this in the calendar, and I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me on and asking me to be part of it.
Absolute pleasure. See you soon. Take care.
You take care. See you, Neil.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Asad. I loved diving deeper into the story behind the Unmistakable and getting a even more of a feel for how you operate as a team with you at the helm. And yeah, just so much respect and excitement about the work that the Unmistables does. There is a real excitement about it, and beautiful to hear about some of those collaborations, particularly with Can, and that work you do. And so interesting to hear Asad talk about the fact that he still thinks he's trying to find his voice and destination in inclusion as well. Because for me, he is way up there in terms of what he's doing. And so yeah, it's so interesting, and it, their work evolves as the rhetoric and understanding and importance of DEI shifts and evolves. And it just goes to show again, agile, innovative, all those things that I think of when I think about the Unmistakable. One of the points that really stood out to me in this conversation was around the role that we play, the roles that we give ourselves, and sometimes the caricatures that we can play. And Assad really leans into his cheeky and mischievous side, both personally and through the work he does. But how sometimes in playing this role, we can sometimes undermine our own seriousness, and that doesn't always serve us well, and particularly as queer people in situations. And so that really struck me. And those words that he uses to describe his origin story: unmistakable, different, and challenging, and different and challenging, absolutely. And I love that he got unmistakable in there. Just goes to show his brilliance when it comes to marketing and really living the unmistakable life. So Asad, thank you so much for being a guest on Pause and Rewind. Loved getting to know you more, and I can't wait to see what you've got coming up. I'm really excited to hear more about the Hope Gap, and the other work that you're doing. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please do share it with anyone you think would benefit from listening to it. Help spread these conversations. Like, subscribe, rate, comment, do whatever you can, and I really appreciate it. So stay tuned for more amazing guests on Pause and Rewind back next week. Cheers.